We're experimenting today with doing videos of the show, so we don't have everything perfected yet. This is a high expense operation, and due to the expenses, we can't have any staff. You figure that one out. Okay, so, I forgot to mention this before in the show. My Get Over It video, there was something that appeared on the internet. It was a comment by Putin, and I'm going to show it to you. Putin says to the Democrat Party, "You lost, get over it." So there you go. By the way, the phone number here is 775-990-4900. If you want to get in on the action, just give us a call at that number. Where are we here? Oh yeah, insurance. I, every year, at the end of the year, tend to go over the way our family spends money. It's important to do this because stuff happens. I can't use the defecation word because they don't allow us to do that. But things happen during the year, and I pay my insurance monthly. Some people pay it quarterly, some every 6 months, and some annually. So when you pay monthly, you are advised immediately of any changes that take place in your insurance. So I made my insurance payment last month in November, and to my surprise, it had gone up $12. And I called up my insurance company and I said, "Listen, I didn't add anything to the policy. Nobody called me, and yet my insurance went up." And they told me, "Yeah, we're really sorry about that, but the State Board of Insurance decided that there were more accidents these days, and because of that, we agreed to let them raise your insurance rates." What? "Oh, don't worry, the increase was only a one-time charge. After that, it'll drop back down, but it still won't be what you were paying before." And I thought to myself, what kind of competitive edge is that when the state can just decide to increase your insurance? What the hell is going on here? Every time you get the state involved and they set up a board to review electrical rates, gas rates, water rates, the next thing you know, nobody has to be efficient anymore. All they have to do is go ask for more money and justify it in their finances. I kind of like those boards to go away, and I just want to see good competition. That's what's needed. So at the end of every year, I go through all my bills and I check and see what it costs. Now, I just went through my insurance program. That's home insurance, car insurance, whatever. And I just discovered I could save $1,100 a year by changing companies for comparable insurance. Well, if I can save that much money in a year, well, I could really go out and have a great dinner with the wife. I mean, not just one. So I made the calls and I checked everything out. I haven't made the change yet. My advice is everyone should do this every year. You should be sure that what you're getting is what you signed up for, because it may not be. And I always believe that you should treat your marriage like a business. Look at your expenses, look at how you do things, and believe me, when something happens to you or your home or your car or your family, it isn't charity that comes along. It's going to be a business decision by somebody else. So you need to prepare in advance. So one of the things that ties into that on this insurance deal, and then on many other cases, like your credit cards, hey, shop around for the best credit card rate you can get. You might find out that you're paying a little too much for what you got. Oh, I should talk about that too. Do you know we used to have a law about usury? And that said that you could not charge more than 10% interest when you had a loan. A loan may be for just on your good name, which is like a credit card. But along came Utah in the 1980s. And Utah, and I believe this is when it actually took place. It's, you know, this is like, what, 30, 40 years later or so. But it was around that time that I read about these industrial banks that were created in Utah, which allowed them to go beyond the 10% rate. And that's when credit cards started. So there were only one or two at the time banking institutions that had located a headquarters for this particular type of business in Utah. And the other banks started looking at this and said, wait a minute, we need to take advantage of this. And here's what one of the advantages was. They got FDIC insurance, but they didn't have to cooperate with the FDIC. I don't know how that worked, folks, but that's what happened. So today, when you see credit card rates of 15 and 20, and they have been as high as 36% if your credit was really lousy, you got bad credit and they want to raise your rates, what makes them think you can afford to make those payments when they raise the rates to 30%, 36%? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's the history of how it progressed. And if you want to look for it, the article that was written about this was in the Economist magazine. They did a full one-page article on it, and I don't know, I think it goes back to between 1988 and 1994, but it's interesting, and I think it's worth taking a look at. We are charging way too much in interest rate these days. So treat your marriage like a business and treat your home finances, your personal finances, like it's a business. Because let me tell you what, business is treating it that way. And you should do the same. Don't just assume you've always got a good deal. The deal may be better somewhere else. And it may be better, not just because it's cheaper, but there are other issues that come into play in your insurance. As an example, let's say you have a homeowner's policy. Now I can remember when my homeowner's policy had a deductible. Maybe it was like $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever it was. So I was talking to my insurance carrier today, and we were discussing these issues, and the deductible, it turns out, is now 5%, which means if I have a $1,000 claim, the deductible is $50. If I have a $100,000 claim, it's going to be $5,000. And if the claim is $200,000 or $300,000, because let's say the house burned down, we're talking a $15,000 deductible. So the deductible in this particular case floated with the size of the claim. And I was told you would never lose your insurance over that, but I never saw that in writing, so there you go. Now when you sign up for something like insurance or a credit card or something of that sort, if something goes wrong, normally you would have gone to court or you would have tried to negotiate some sort of agreement between you and the other party. But they started writing so many laws in this country the courts couldn't keep up with. We couldn't create enough lawyers and judges, and we didn't have enough money to pay for all that stuff. So guess what? They came up with a new idea. and I don't think it originated here, I believe it originated over in Great Britain, but they came up with arbitration. And you know, if you have a credit card, or you have an insurance policy, or you have other agreements, there's always this arbitration clause in there. Now, as a real estate broker, most of your real estate contracts have had arbitration clauses. They have what's called a mediation portion, and they have an arbitration portion. Mediation meant, well, let's sit down with somebody between us. So you've got three people sitting there. You've got the injured party, you've got the party who injured you, and you have the mediator who tries to help you come to an agreement so you don't have to go past that. Believe me, it's a lot cheaper on your finances and your health if you can do this. But if that doesn't work out, the next step was to go to arbitration. Now, I've got to tell you about arbitration because I've been to it. Not only, if I go to something, I want to know everything about it before I get into it. So the first thing I did was I found out about the American Arbitration Association. The American Arbitration Association is an organization that has like retired judges and retired lawyers who have skills in certain areas. And so what their job is to decide who's right and what the penalties are. Or maybe there's no case, who knows. But if you agree to arbitration, in the American Arbitration brochure, that's the final say. I'll get back to that in a little bit. So if you go to arbitration, the first thing is, who's going to be the arbitrator? That's the first question that's going to come up. And according to the American Arbitration Association, run by lawyers, it should be a lawyer. But in reality, it doesn't have to be. You should know this. It can be someone who is well-versed in the particular issue that is going to be heard. Now, to my way of thinking, I think that that's a good thing. I want somebody who's well-versed in the issue so that, and I want to make sure that person is not known by the other party. So I have to tell you, I went to this arbitration, right? And my lawyer, I had told my lawyer, I said, look, if you're going to have any conversation with the other side, I don't want you to have it unless I'm there, or you can patch me in on a conference call. He was a good guy. And he said, okay, I can do that. Well, one of the conversations he patched me in on, these lawyers talked about the fact that they were going to go on vacation. So for an hour, they discussed how were they going to schedule their vacations so they could hear this arbitration case. And then I heard one of the lawyers, the arbitrator, address the other two lawyers as Bill and Bob. Well, Bill and Bob, this is an interesting case. And then he addressed my lawyer, well, Mr. Goose, I'm looking forward to this arbitration. So after that conversation was over, my lawyer didn't pick up on that, but I did. And I said to him, I said, listen, this arbitrator works in the real estate industry. He's a lawyer in real estate. And he references those other two guys by their first name. They're friends. And he references you because he has no idea who the hell you are. And he said, oh, don't worry about it, he'll be fair. I thought to myself, maybe I ought to get me another lawyer. Maybe I ought to represent myself. I'm capable of doing that. But instead, I went forward. And I have to tell you, I was right. Those lawyers and that arbitrator were friends, and they kicked my butt. So I never recommend arbitration for anyone. Cross it out, sign a document, and then if something goes wrong, mediate the case first, And if you're not happy with what's happening, go to court. And if you're smart, you'll educate yourself and learn all the rules and how to use them to win your case. So we're going to take a break here, and we'll be back in just a minute.